Hi friends, Robert here for Diverse Opals. Welcome back to our YouTube channel. Thank you to those of you who have been subscribing and leaving comments. It is appreciated. Today I want to talk about something that we all end up with at some stage or another if we're working with white-based opal or opal from Cooperpedy, Andamuka, Mintabee, Lambina, even Lightning Ridge. We end up with chips. We end up with small stones and we think, what will we do with them? Well, this is an example of some very nice chips, mind you. I would have loved to have seen the larger pieces that this came off of, but unfortunately they didn't come through my hands. But if we think about what we can do with this type of material, there are a few things that come to mind to make use of them. So instead of just tossing them away or not knowing what to do with them, I've got some ideas for you today that you might be able to put into practice. So as you're cutting, and you might have a small little piece that comes off a stone, throw it into a jar. Put it into a jar or a box and just keep it aside, or it may be a little bit cracky that's not suitable for a stone. Here is another example from that I've made a few years ago, and this is made in the same manner. We take our chips of opal, we thin them down, we paint them black, and I've actually put this onto a silver base. Now this is a cast one. It has the holes in the side for being able to hang it, and maybe it's not your cup of tea at all, but for those of you that are interested, I'm going to take you through the stages today of how to make something like this, and I hope that it's of help to you. I'm going to talk about the darkening agent that I use because we need to create some sort of a dark base for the actual opal. Because the opal will end up being thin, we want to highlight the pattern and colour in it. Now this is lamp black, and lamp black is actually generated through burning an oil-based product, I believe, and it's scraped from the walls of the processing plant, I guess you could call it, and when it's mixed with alcohol it actually dissolves, and this allows us to paint it onto the surface of things to make things dark. I'm using an alcohol product. We call it methylated spirits, and you probably can buy this in your local hardware. This I'm using today to dissolve the lamp black into, and I'm just mixing a little bit because we don't need a great deal, and I'm just going to add a little bit of this lamp black. I don't have a spoon, so I'm just going to use this, and I'm just going to add it to the alcohol, and you can see it's already starting to change. You can see it's already starting to mix, and we'll just mix it a little bit with the tool that I'm using. If you follow the description below our video, you'll actually see this particular item there. Another word of advice about this particular product, lamp black, is that don't get it on your clothes. It doesn't come out. So it's if you end up getting it on your clothes, it's there for good. And I'm just going to paint it with a brush. And that's it. This will dry very quickly because it's alcohol based, and what we need to do is, in the situation of where we have opal, we would need to slice it perhaps to a thickness of 1 to 2 millimeters. It can be a little bit thicker, and what I've already done here is I've actually painted these. So it's the same process you've seen here. We use the brush and just paint it on. I'm going to be using Yuhu Ultra Strong. I'm using a 24-hour epoxy. We're going to measure out equal parts, and we don't need a lot because it's only a very small area we're working in. So I would say that's about it. And so we'll just mix this together. And in addition to darkening the silver pendant itself and also the opal, we're going to add a little bit of lamp black to the glue because we want the glue to appear to be black in itself. And you don't need a lot of this. That's probably ample, I'd say. So the lamp black will mix freely into the glue and will actually give you that dark perspective. So if you're going to do this process, don't overdo the amount of lamp black that you put in, because that in itself will weaken the bond between the opal and the base. So we just put this onto the surface of the pendant, whether it be silver or something else, and I have made some of these out of boulder bases, used boulder opal as a base, ironstone that is, and put a reasonable amount on. Don't be afraid to hold back, because the black nature of the epoxy and glue is going to help add to the character of the piece that we're making. Now, just one thing to keep in mind: if you're working on something that's very thin and the colour bar happens to be on one side of the opal and not all the way through, I suggest that you put the colour bar that exists in the opal on the bottom side that is actually going to be placed onto here. If you put it onto the top, of course, when we start to grind the top of the surface of the stone to bring everything into a nice even surface, that bar will disappear. Put your opal on in such a way that it actually overhangs a little bit, and if you want a nice, well, if you want the opal to be extending over the edge, you can do that, because we will actually be grinding that off later. And that's what I'm going to do here, just to by example. We can see that's hanging off the bottom. That's going to be cleaned up later. Just use a little bit of pressure when you put the piece on top of the pendant, and just gently rub it backwards and forwards to make it seat onto the surface. Mix up your colours. We've got some reds, we've got some blues, we've got some oranges. It looks a bit odd at the present, and that's only to be expected. But I finished doing the layout as best I can. Now, this is my warming plate. It is a dedicated warming plate. It's normally used for industrial applications, but you can use a frying pan, an electric frying pan. Just make sure that the temperature that you're working with is not hot. We're not frying eggs or bacon. It has to be warm. Anything above that and you're actually going to be doing damage to the glue and even to your opal. So just make sure that your hot plate is the sort of temperature where you'd put your hand on there and you might go 1, 2, 3, oh, that's getting hot, and take your hand away. That's the sort of temperature that we want. Now this is the stage of where you will be doing your final checking and aligning, because after this it'll be too late. Well, we've finished the gluing stage and it doesn't look particularly appealing at this particular point in time. And of course we've got overhang here, a little bit of overhang here. And what I'm going to do now is just trim those off. I guess I should explain what this is. This is a mounted diamond disc, a diamond blade. This one we use in dry. We just use it for cutting off bits and pieces, small pieces. And it's probably a little bit quicker than perhaps going to the diamond saw, and a little bit less messy. So as you can see, I've just cut this piece off the side here. We'll keep that for later on. You can find the description for this particular item on the description below our video, as you will with all of the items that we're actually using in this process. I'm cutting these off with a little bit of overhang over the edge of the silver work itself, because we'll be working back towards the edge soon. But yeah, I'm just trimming off the excesses. We're now on the grinder. We've come to my Gem Master grinder, and I'm going to be using a flattening wheel. This is a sintered diamond lap, and this is the stage where we're going to be flattening the surface of the pendant. I'll be using water, and I'll be using a mask. Whether or not I'm working dry or whether I'm working wet, I always use a mask. We're now on my Mandrel high-speed sander. I'm using Metador paper. I'm using a 240 grit. Light pressure. That's basically it, but I'm going to trim up the sides now. This pendant will be finished with a brushed finish. If you are doing something like this yourself, of course you can polish it, but I don't mind the brush finish. Now I'm on my Gem Master polisher. I'm using a leather buff. Using O-pol polishing powder, not using and it's being mixed with water to produce a slurry. And so now we're at the stage where we're just going to quickly polish this, which won't take very long. So essentially we're finished now. That's it, that's how quickly we can polish this. All we need to do now is just to take the little bits of white out of it, because I'll put it back in the ultrasonic cleaner. Well, we're back from the workshop, and as you can see, this is a nice example of a pendant, making use of chips of opal. And it doesn't have to be limited just to opal. It can be other stones that you might like as well. But in the way that we'd make doublets or triplets, we've taken thin slices of opal, painted them, painted the backs black so that it actually highlights the colour. One aspect of this that perhaps was a little bit of a disappointment, one of the pieces I didn't check thoroughly, and it has presence of sandstone, but this can in fact be ground out with a tool like a drill. I hope that this has been a helpful exercise for you to find some way of being able to do or make use of your opal chips, and please continue to watch our videos and perhaps learn something from what we're doing. I'm Robert for Diverse Opals. Thank you for watching.